it's good to practice things like using your long shot, mid shot, and close up. So generally, in a lot of cases, you'll start a scene with a long shot. So out far, you might see the two people on the horizon or something. They'll be here, and then you'll snap in with your next cut. So I've redrawn this shot real quick, and I changed my mind on a few things. I was gonna put it as a laid back scene, they're training, but then I thought, no, I'll try and add tension to the scene. So what I did here was, I imagined that there's a line down the middle and that it's symmetrical. Now, there's something about symmetry that can add tension to the scene. It can be a bit, I'm not gonna say disturbing, but it doesn't feel right. But you can use that to your advantage. So here you feel like, okay, there's something's, it's a bit epic, I put the mountains on the side to demonstrate that it's grand scale. So these guys, it might just be a fist fight, but figuratively they could be fighting for a lot more than that. This fight could be over something that has higher stakes than what is actually just being risked in the fight itself. I've done that, and I've also started off with a long shot, and maybe I'll have the setting sun here. That might be a bit too calm, a setting sun, but maybe I'll have it. Maybe that will be the thing that just offsets it. Maybe this could be an omen that because the moon is on this side, maybe this guy's gonna win. Try and be inventive with the way you lay things out. So the other thing is that it allows the audience to take in not only who the characters are and who is there, but also what environment are they in. If you start with a close-up of just the face and you go straight into the action, well then you can't actually, as a viewer, know what the hell is going on around him. Are there crowds of people around? Is it in a public place? Is it private? Is it in the middle of nowhere like this place is? So it's important to communicate that early on so people understand the deal. So now I've done the long shot, so this could be our establishing shot. We could also do an establishing shot from a bird's eye view, and the advantage of this is that there's nothing to hide. So if I did it down like this from a bird's eye view, maybe I could do it like if I just laid out the platform, not stadium, like an arena that they're on, like this. Maybe I'd make it smaller in the frame so I can really see what's around them, right? So I'll make that smaller like this, squash it, but the thing is we're high up in the sky, right, when seeing this. So we see the stadium, we see the two, we have to have things that draw our eye to them. So what I would do is maybe I'd add some lines that are going to draw our eyes to them. Perhaps there's crossroads here, crossroads that intersect and they go off into the distance. And then maybe there's just that little bit of horizon line, because it's nice to see the horizon. When you don't show the horizon line, it can be quite disorienting. Like you don't know, if you don't see the sky and the land, it can be quite difficult. Like I always think about when I'm in a plane, right? If I'm flying in a plane, if the wings tilt like this and you look out the window and all you can see is sky, you're like, whoa, what is going on? It feels very weird. And also the opposite way, if the plane goes this way and you look out the window and all you can see is land, it's also got that similar effect of like, where's the sky? I need to see the sky. You need to see both in there. Unless you want to, of course, use that to your advantage. If you want to make the scene very distressing, you could have all the shots not show the sky at all. And that could give a very interesting effect to your piece. Or you could not show the ground at all, and that might make it feel very ungrounded. It could make it feel like, that the characters are unstable. They can't, they don't have a control on their environment because they can't see the ground. You can't see the ground at all. So you don't even see their foot like hit the ground when they walk. You just see them and the sky, and it would be very kind of like living a dangerous life, perhaps. So you got to like interpret these things, you've also got to leave it to your audience to interpret it. But the more thought you put into it, the better. So I know that I'm going to look back on this video and think, oh man, I should have done this. I could have done this and that and loads of different tactics and stuff. And, you know, that's just how it is though. But the more time you give to this stage, the better your execution is going to be when you finish it. So it's not always about the fancy stuff, like the way they execute their moves, or well, the way you animate a run or something like that. You know, it can be more about just how you can make your audience care about what's happening. So also the advantage of this one, opposed to this one, is that here you can not only see them very clearly, right? So they're here, but you can also see the entire area around them. So there's nothing left to the imagination. The audience knows where they are. It's just more understanding to them. It's more information given to them. Now you might want to have rocks and stuff around. You might want to have a few rocks and places, maybe trees and stuff like that. Who knows? It can be anything, but then at least they know it's there. And you could reveal later that someone's watching them from behind the rocks. That was what I did in one of the animations that I recently did as a commission. Anyway, so that's that. Now, what was I going to say? I keep on getting sidetracked. Right, so the other thing, now I've done my long shot, I can go to a mid shot. So this time, it's typically a mid shot will have the majority or all of the bodies of the characters within the frame. So I'm going to have it so, maybe I'll have it like this. So it could be kind of looking over the shoulder. I'm sorry about my anatomy, but I'm just doing this mainly just as a demonstration. Maybe something like, I'm more interested in like the gesture of the pose, you know, what's he saying with his body language. So to make up for that, in this one, I'm going to add lots of depth into this one, and it's going to make us feel spatially aware. When you add layers of depth, or you add directional lines to convey depth, it makes it feel more like it's in 3D space, and it makes you, again, it convinces you that it's more real. So someone like Wes Anderson, who does a lot of things to make them look like they're 2D like this, like flat, it's a very stylized view, and it does kind of break the fourth wall in that you're aware all the time of the filmmaking techniques. So if you're going to be a director who breaks the fourth wall and is making your audience aware that it's a film, you have to be very, very good and be entertaining in the way that you do it. You have to be extremely good, basically. And I would also suggest that you learn the technique of invisible filmmaking before you go into visible filmmaking. Anyway, getting off topic again, I'm terrible for that today. And then this guy is smaller, and that kind of serves as our perspective. And it's okay to make people very small in the frame, as long as you set up the composition so that you can, as the audience, their eye is drawn to it. I can make this guy really small, but as long as I create, you know, maybe I would put the horizon line here, make him a tall figure that's standing up. You see how his there's these horizontal lines here, right? And then this breaks through that horizontal line. That kind of draws your eye to it straight away, because you've got this nice smooth line, and your eye will just skim along this line because it's nice and smooth, it's flat, and there's nothing happening on it. But then once there's a bump, whoa, your eye sees it straight away, and it just zooms in to this point here. I've done that. And also what I can do is I can set him up in the rule of thirds grid. So if I imagine, I don't actually have the actual grid open right now, unfortunately, but if I did, I would turn on the rule of thirds grid and estimate that, if we turn that off for a second, we can estimate that There we go, something like that. So if I made these, reduce the alpha on them so you can only just see them like that, turned on that. You see, I can now align them to fit onto the rule of thirds grid so that there, his head is where I want you to look at. So I'm going to put that bang on the rule of thirds grid, right? This guy, I can have him off the rule of thirds grid. He doesn't need to be in there. The point is that you should have, you know, at least just 1.1 or 2, but mainly just the one aligned with the rule of thirds grid, and that will give your audience something to look at straight away. As soon as that frame is revealed in the edit, your eye will go straight to that. So I could even make him smaller here. I could make them both smaller, but you don't even have to have it in the crosshair. You could also have it above like that. That could also work. So here, it's conveniently brought me to another thing that you can use with composition. In fact, I'm just going to move that. I'm going to move this figure. I'm going to make him bigger, and I'm going to make him down like this. So, vertical distances in the frame. So, as you can see, this guy is bigger in the frame. So you might be thinking, okay, he's bigger in the frame, so maybe that's like he's stronger. But no, the person who has the power, the character who has the power in the frame, generally will be represented in composition as being higher up in the frame. Doesn't mean he has to be taller. You can actually frame it in an angle where even a small, tiny character can be over another character by using perspective. So in this case, okay, so this guy right now, this guy is lower down than he is. So this guy feels, you know, also with his body language, he feels like he's more comfortable and he feels like he's superior to this guy. And to the audience, that's what it's saying to the audience as well, that this guy is superior, this guy right here. If I worked out the angle so that I could have it, you know, him lower down in the frame, I mean, it's not going to work here because of how I've set up the perspective, but if I had it like that dynamic, well, instantly this guy looks a lot more superior. And it's not just because of his size, it's actually because he's above him in the frame. So where you place characters in the frame can be very important in telling the audience something about them. Now, if you don't do this, I mean, you can get away with it, but if you don't do it, you are at risk of actually miscommunicating to your audience something in the story. So, for example, if you had a taller character and the taller character is meant to be weaker, well, if you didn't show that with the camera language, maybe the audience wouldn't pick up on it. So it is something that's important to show. I know this kind of composition and editing goes more into storytelling, but it's what can make a fight scene really good. I mean, I see a lot of fight scenes that are like side-scrolly games, and I think they are kind of inspired by games. You know, things like Tekken and Soul Calibur, I think. Yeah, which are very like side-on, and you'll just have the two characters fighting. It's just focusing on the fighting. But that's not actually very good for the cinematic versions. And you'll notice that in their cutscenes, they will use their camera work, you know. Yeah, I see stick figure animations where it will be, you know, two stick figures in a boxed room like this. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, but it could be a lot better. It could be a lot more tense. It could have the audience a lot more invested in who wins. I think I see a lot of these fight scenes, especially stick figure animations, where they look nice and they're impressive, like how they've been animated, but at the end of the day, you don't care who wins and who loses. Well, you don't care about the story. You're not invested in the story, so it's got a lot less gravity to it. Instead, it's just like the only thing you can achieve from that as a director is impressing someone with technical ability. Whereas if you try and show the story in a unique way, which will make people invested in the story, as I was saying before, you can achieve way more than just impressing them. You can actually change their emotional state. You can move them. You can make them stressed out. You can make them happy. You could make them devastated, and that has a lot of power in it. And that's actually what a lot of advertisers are looking for. If you look at a lot of big name advertising, what they're actually trying to do is they're trying to pack into their advert, into their commercial, as you might call it in America, a little story, a little mini story, because they know the power of storytelling. Storytelling is extremely powerful on our minds. So there are other close-ups. So I've gone through, there's close-up with the faces like this, right? Where you close up on the face, but what about a close-up on the hands? So hands are very expressive. They're very expressive parts of the body. Feet less so, but they still can be. And then other parts are just kind of joining on, you see. So the arm part is just really, it's just joining your hand to your body, you know. But anyway, so hands, very expressive. So if I did a shot like this, and let's say I had it clenched, you know. Maybe I after this I would make it extremely clenched. But right now it's kind of loose. Maybe there's blood dripping from it. Well, that tells a story, doesn't it? Just that alone. And now you see how this is silhouetted like this. So I can do this, and it's good shape language. So you're straight away, this blank space will just draw you to this part. So there's no difficulty in finding where it is in the frame. That's very important if you're going to have a shot that only shows up for a limited amount of time. So here, what can we see? We can see that it's bloody knuckles, right? And then with his hand, he tightens his hand. So we could have another frame here where he tightens his hand like that. I mean, that's a terrible drawing, I know. I'm going to look back on this and cringe, but you know what I mean. So he's got bloody knuckles and then he tightens his hand. What does that mean? Well, we know what it means, and it's just from such a simple thing we can get part of the story from it. So it's a storytelling device, very important. Close-up generally says to the audience, look at this, pay attention, this part is important, right? So when you close up on something, it's saying to your audience, pay attention now, because you're going to need this bit for the story. So as soon as you close up into anything, the audience is like, okay, what's that? You know? So maybe this is unnecessary in this part because it hasn't got enough of a meaning, but we can show here that he's been beat up real bad. He's very he's in a bad way because he's got bloody knuckles. He's been fighting, or he's fallen down into the dirt, right? And then the tightening of the knuckles could say either I've been provoked and I have this fiery temper which is awoken when I am beaten up, or it could be like I'm enduring the pain, I'm not giving in. So just from that, we can see that, and that could be a really turning point in our story. We could have this guy getting beaten up and we don't know what he's going to do, and we just see this. We just see the hand tightening up, and we'll know straight away what that means. So yeah, the close-up can be a very useful tool for a filmmaker. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit before we end about the editing, and in particular the pacing. The pacing of each shot can be very important as to how it's delivered in the end. So I really like long shots. That's a personal thing for me. I like to see, I'm very influenced by people like Jackie Chan and Kung Fu artists, Donnie Yen, Tony Jaa, and they take pride in the fact that they can, a dozen guys in one take, and they can nail it. That's very good, but it might not serve your story well. It might, or it might not. It's nice to have at least one long shot in there. I think it is anyway, because it will show your technical ability. Whether you're a fighter in live action or if you're an animator, a long shot will really be a test of your ability. So that's just why I enjoy it, and people will enjoy a good long shot. If you look at The Hobbit, there's a fantastic long shot of one of the dwarves rolling in a barrel down this river, just taking out countless amounts of orcs as he goes along, and it's a fantastic shot, you know, and that must last at least 30 seconds. It was crazy, it was insane. And I think that's one of the most memorable parts of The Hobbit. When I was walking out of the cinema, I was just thinking about that scene. That's good, but you should also pay attention to how long each shot is exposed for, because the counter effect of that is that a long shot can also be used to calm down a scene very much so. So if I had this training scene, you know, I'm going to use this example again. So if I had this and I coupled it with the thing that I said earlier, you know, putting them in the distance like this on a horizontal plane, and I left the camera rolling for 10-20 seconds, a long shot of them just training and fighting it out. That would be very calm. It would be kind of surreally calm, because they're fighting, and yet I'd be chill watching that in the theater. I'd be like, oh, I might even get bored. But if I close cut this shot here, just a few hits with that angle, you know, more angles here, really speed up the editing, then that will be fast pace. It will give a completely different feel to it. On the other hand, building tension, you can also use the long shot. So if these guys are in stance and you're just waiting there and they're just taking their time, like here, you just want this guy to move, right? But it's just holding on it. And then maybe it will go back. This is a technique often used by Sergio Leone in westerns, like spaghetti westerns. So you'll just hold it for ages. Hold it for like a nail-bitingly long amount of time, and by the end of it, you know, you just want them to fight, and this tension just builds up. You can use music as well to help build it up, and then basically your brain is just like, come on, I want to see who wins this. So the long shot can be used to either make it calm or to build up tension if you do it right. I generally think that if you're going to use it as a tension method, you'll want to gradually speed up the amount of cuts. So generally the pacing of cuts I'll show it in a diagram here. So it will be like long shot, you know, and then they'll speed up. This can be a great technique for building up tension. So this could be before the fight has happened, you know. So these things here represent cuts. You got an arrow going this way, that's time. Before fight. In fact, what I would do to build tension is I would have a massive lead up to the fight, and then, you know, these cuts get closer and closer and closer like this, and by this time, you know, they're still just there in their stances, and then here this tension finally gets released. Go a little bit longer like this, or you could ramp it back up again. Say one of the opponents in this shot here, in one of these shots, he brings out a knife. Now that will be a game changer, right? That could completely change things. Now you're thinking about, is one of them going to die? So there, you know, you could have another change in the pace of the edit. So here, fight. And maybe you can throw in, okay, so you got like these shots here. You might want to go to some close-up shots just to show if one of them gets punched, you could quickly cut in to a shot of him getting punched in the gut, and then maybe if you wanted to make the audience feel like, oh, ouch, you could then quickly cut to his face where it shows the pain, you know. So here you'll have the quick cut, and then cut out, and you could go to a long shot. But that should give you an idea of like how you can use cutting in this. Of course, with animation, cutting works a little bit differently to live action. So in live action, the director will, you know, go out and shoot all the shots he has, all the shots he needs to shoot, and then he'll go with the editor into a room for months on end, and they'll cut the stuff together afterwards once they've got all the footage. With an animator, you don't have the luxury of cutting animated footage, of course, but what you can do is you can create an animatic and then edit the animatic. So it involves a lot of your own imagination there, because what you'll have is you'll have storyboards, and you'll be cutting the storyboards, and you'll be imagining how long it will take for an action to happen in the frame. So that's really the main difference between editing a live action thing and editing an animated film. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there because I've been going for almost an hour now. Yeah, I hope you learned something from it. I'm still, of course, learning this stuff as I go along. I'm going to keep on bringing out videos as I learn more about the craft. Right now, this is something I'm very interested in, is the control of the directing and how you can create tension and intensity in a fight scene. So this is only one route that you have to take. It's more of a kind of Hollywood route, I guess, or an anime route. Definitely influenced by a lot of anime. Anyway, please subscribe to me on YouTube if you haven't already. Please subscribe to my mailing list on animatorguild.com. If you haven't already, I don't know, this will probably be up on Animator Guild at some point. I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye. Somewhere here. And so it's kind of like a three-way thing where the two characters are here and the camera's here, and it's picking up both of them and they're side by side in relation to the camera. So this one is like the standard one that it's almost like the default